right, so now we're going to be focusing on these two lovely, lovely cymbals. These are both the Jojo Meyer designed Omni cymbals. The farther one from the camera here is the AAX, and this one is the HHX. The idea for both of them is, well, the idea for both of these is that it's both a crash and a ride cymbal. That's why they call it the Omni cymbal. And the way they achieve that is they have, as you can see, they have this part up here which is unlathed, and then they have this part at the edge that is lathed. And the biggest reason why you get a really dry ride sound out of the unlathed part and a really soft crash cymbal out of the lathed part is because when they lathe it, they're actually taking a fair amount of material away. So the edge is much, much thinner than the bow or even the bell. And so you get, out of both cymbals, you get a really nice cutting heavy bell. You also get a really nice dry stick sound on the bow. And you can ride on the edge. Sometimes I do that when I need a lot of, like a slow tempo, when I need a lot of spread under a section. But I mean, really, the edge I kind of reserve that use for crashing, and it sounds really, really nice. So I get essentially, you know, if you count bell, bow, edge, stick, and then edge, edge, I get basically 8 sounds out of 2 cymbals, which is really, really cool. It allows me to have a lot less, funnily enough, allows me to have a lot fewer pieces of gear, which means that if I do scale down for whatever reason, I still have a lot of musical possibilities with just these 2 cymbals. So I travel with these everywhere. And, you know, the reason for using both of them, obviously you can see there are some visual differences, and they lead to sonic differences. So the AAX, or rather the HHX hammering is much bigger than the AAX hammering. Plus, they're hammering throughout the entire cymbal. The only thing that isn't hammered on the HHX is the bell. The bell is not hammered. Everything from here to the edge is hammered, as opposed to the AAX, which is also, you know, the bell is not hammered. But to me, it looks like the only thing that is hammered is just this unlathed section here. The edge here is not hammered. It is lathed, but it's not hammered. And so that means that also other differences, the HHX bell is a lot smaller. Also, overall, the cymbal profile of the HHX is a lot flatter than the AAX. So the AAX tends to be a lot brighter, and the HHX tends to be a lot darker. And I think you can kind of hear that difference. I think you can hear that. I think you can hear that difference in bright versus dark. It also, the AAX is a little bit heavier, HHX is a little bit lighter, which especially means when I'm playing on the bell, the AAX bell is really cutting and tends to be pretty dry and very cutting, as opposed to the HHX, which is smaller and lighter, and it's in a darker, flatter cymbal, so it tends to have a lot more spread underneath of it. And all of this means that I can use these, much like when we were talking about the sick hats and the plague hats being kind of a bright and a dark, and using them for different sections where I need a different mood. It's very much the same thing with these 2 cymbals. If the song if I only need one ride cymbal sound in a song, then I'm going to choose whichever one of these fits the mood of the song more. So if it's a darker, more mysterious type of song, I'm probably going to play the HHX. If it's a little bit brighter or happier, or anyway. If it's if it needs even if it's more aggressive sounding, I'll tend to play the AAX. Yeah, anyway. And sometimes I'll even do that within the same section. Sometimes I'll play, you know, if they're holding on a chord and then they change to a different chord, I'll switch. You know, whichever one I've been using, I'll switch to the other one. Or sometimes I'll play a very open type of groove using the bell of the AAX. And then when I need to introduce more subdivisions into it, I'll go to the HHX. You know, I use these a lot, and so I get to play around with a lot of different possibilities. But something like that might sound like. So that would be an example of how I would use these. A perfect example of that kind of interplay is the Herd of Bison song, The Journey. Now, in The Journey, we have this section which we call the refrain, which has it's either keyboard or it's guitar, but it has this very long, kind of spacey sounding melody with this really heavy guitar and bass riff going on underneath of it. And then there's this other section called the chorus, in which there's vocals. And the vocal melody is almost the same in the chorus as it is in the refrain, but it's slightly different. So the two sections are very similar but different. And so I used the AAX during the refrain to really drive home. Both of these sections are an example where the bell really comes into play, and because the AAX bell is nice and dry, I basically am just playing quarter notes on the bell, and it really drives the riff and, you know, builds this kind of circular momentum. And then for the chorus, by using the darker HHX, it just gives the spread, because there's not only a vocal melody, but there's this huge choir going on underneath of it. So it gives that whole section just a little bit, even more of a little dynamic lift, because there's a little bit more spread going on. So those two sections might sound like. Not exactly the greatest transition from one section to the other, but anyway, this is what that sounds like with music.